Well, you're a part of someone else's day. You're a part of them looking forward to come to work. So the way that you engage in work, there's some duty. You're duty bound to help someone else. Like, everyone's had that situation where they don't want to go to work, and it's usually because of a particular relationship or something like that, or a situation. And so it kind of, we could take everything else and throw it away and just say that is the only priority we have. Look forward to coming to work, because that means the right thing for each person.
Welcome to the Clear Brand Marketing Podcast, where we take the mystery out of marketing and help you get more leads and sales with a clear brand and proven marketing tactics. I'm your host, Alexander. And today I am joined by Fred Loucks with Dunn Stone Builders. Fred worked his way from the bottom up in single-family residential construction. He started in warranty in 1999, joined Dunn Stone Builders in 2010, and then bought it in 2019, right before COVID, which he immediately had to figure out how to survive, and we're going to hear some of that story today. Thanks for joining us, Fred.
Yeah, thank you.
So this is quite the journey, going from being part of the company to buying it. So I'd love to start by hearing about that. So what got you into Dunn Stone in the first place, and what was your role at the beginning?
Yeah. So I'd been with Imperial Homes for about 9 years, and then the Great Recession came, and Imperial Homes, long story of kind of all the different steps within that organization, but went to the organizational team, or the management team, and was part of helping them file that into a Chapter 7. And then Chapter 7 in 2009, and then I got a call in 2010 from somebody I'd known previously that said, Todd Dunn with Dunn Stone Builders is looking for a purchasing manager. So someone for supply chain, get the organization organized. And so while no one else was hiring, and almost none of the other builders, they were all on skeleton crews and downsizing, Todd hired me. And I came in to try and start helping them become more efficient with supply chain management. It was funny, in the organization before, when I went into supply chain management, I was able to shave off like $300 a house. Like, we had it pretty tight already. At Dunn Stone, my first month, we were able to save about $8,000 per unit, with just bidding, nothing special.
Wow.
And so then that kind of got, Todd and I, worked really well together kind of from that point on.
So you're saying the issues there with Imperial Homes and filing for Chapter 7, that was because of the Great Recession, 2008, 2009 era. Yeah. And so why was Dunn Stone able to hire at that point?
So Todd made it was a smaller, lighter weight company, so they could make some quicker decisions. They also didn't have the land debt that Imperial had. So at Imperial, overnight, the balance sheet, the equity and value of the property just went, cut in half. And so there were cash calls on construction or lot only loans. We had like roughly $9 million in land that didn't have anything started on it, and it got revalued at like $2 million.
No way. So they were buying land. So that's like the typical home construction, is my understanding. You can correct me, but the companies kind of buy these big plots of land, split it up, and build a bunch of homes, and then sell the homes. Right. Is that what they were doing?
Yep.
Okay. And so they had all this land that they hadn't built on yet, and suddenly it's worth
half
what it was.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. Or less than half. Yeah.
So Dunn Stone was you said lightweight. So not buying land at all, or just doing it differently?
So they were more conservative, as far as he would resist. So typically there's a takedown contract with a developer. So the builder makes an agreement with the developer that we will take down one house or one lot every month for this next year. the idea is to sell a house on it and take it down and build one. Our sales were not as strong as they should have been, but our land department was trying to keep all the developer contracts happy. So we were at Imperial, they were overbuying the land instead of just saying, let's look at these land contracts because the sales aren't there. But by the time the rest of the organization kind of caught on to where we were already closed on $9 million worth of lots that weren't starting. So Todd Dunn was kind of owner operator, and he wouldn't have done that. You know, that wasn't going to happen to him. It was just kind of in the larger organization. One hand didn't know what the other hand was doing, was part of it. And I mean, there's a lot of different things about it, but that was the one noose that I think we could get out of.
So how did you said through supply chain management, you were able to cut costs by $8,000 per property. What did you do that was able to save all that money?
So first is just getting 3 bids, checking prices, and it was not it wasn't rocket science. It was, when I went in, they said, well, we have an agreement with the lumber company that they tell us what the commodity market is, and they put a percentage on it, and that's how we do it. Well, they were doing that based on some fuzzy kind of numbers, but once I got in, sent it out to the lumber companies I'd used, we're like $5,000 a house in lumber that they've been spending over, just because they had a relationship, which is good. I think relationships are really crucial in this business, but you always have to be able to verify that this relationship is, we like each other and it's reasonable business.
Right.
They were doing the going to the barbecues and stuff like that, but at the cost of $5,000 a house. And then the other was on roofing.
And same basic thing, just getting multiple bids.
Yeah. So it was just 2 items. And there's a lot of parts in a house, and so that's like low hanging fruit.
Yeah, and that can all add up. So over the next 9 years, man, you ended up getting to the point that you're buying the business. So walk me through how does that happen?
So the discussions began in 2015, talking about some equity sharing and some stuff like that. But one day in 2018, Todd Dunn came to me, and Chris, which had been kind of running all the day-to-day business. Todd would show up seldom. We really had things running pretty well, and Todd said, "Look, I'm ready to tap out. So I want to sell to you guys." And so from 2018 to 2019, we were working to try and figure out how to make that make sense. So at that point, we had speculative inventory, because we did have 1 foot in production, and that was most of our background. It was building where you got a model home, 20 lots, and taking it down. But we had a burden of about $25,000 a month in construction interest for their specs. And so we were looking at that, and there wasn't a lot of equity there. So we were having a real valuation problem in the purchase, as far as being able to finance it, go to raise capital to do it, because essentially it was almost a net on the assets. But then the build on your land is where we were really starting to pick up steam. Mm-hmm. And when I first got here, I asked them, like, you will literally go build a house on somebody else's land? That sounds so scary. Like, what if something happens and now it's their land and your house? And but then what I realized is all you have to do is really make people happy, and then they carry the land, and we don't have to carry that debt, of having the land and financing the construction. So we started to move more and more into build on your land, and found that we were really good at it. Our margins were steady. Being a smaller builder in a production neighborhood, our advantage was being able to sell flexibility. So if you went to the model next door, you could have anything you wanted as long as it was this package. And we could provide some flexibility, but the contract takedown schedule required us to start some spec homes. And so if you start a home and you finish a home, that flexibility is gone. And to try and compete against another builder that's $20,000 less with a completed house that's you don't have the flexibility, it made it difficult to compete. So our margins, whenever a builder decided, hey, we're going to exit this space, we're going to discount our houses 50, 60,000, liquidate, get out, you would damage the small guys, pretty heavily.
So this transition from, it sounds like you were doing a little bit of build on your lot to a lot, was that before or after or during the process of buying the company?
So it was before it. And so it was kind of one of those deals where we had been doing build on your land for 5 years. And so we were around 200 units that we'd completed doing it that way. Mm-hmm. And it was the only metric, like when you look at financials and performance of communities and all the different measures we use, it was the only one that had some stability. And ultimately that stability comes from, if you're in a community, there's one price point and one demographic you're going to hit. If that price point and demographic now has a problem, they're out of market, your sales drop. Build on your land, we see a bunch of different people at different times. And so when the market's down in one area, like the stock market falls, we'll start doing a lot more cash deals on build on your land where people are moving their investments out into something safer, real estate. And then when the market's up, then there's people that can afford it. To live the dream of getting out of town and living on their own land.
Wow.
So,
okay.
So that's that's probably the main difference is active opportunities in the market.
Well, I love that it allows you to basically stay diversified, mostly because you have options, right? You're not putting your entire company into one community. That I hadn't realized that with these communities. I drive past some in my area all the time. If something does happen and the type of person who buys those types of houses is out of market, that's a hard place to be.
What do you do? Yeah.
Wow. So that had been happening before the purchase, and it sounds like that it was difficult to get a value for the business and to get a loan. So you got a loan to buy it. Is that what you're saying?
So we did a little bit of a bunch of things. It was like a little bit out of this couch cushion, a little this, and Todd Dunn agreed to do an owner finance deal.
Nice.
And so that was part of it. And so it was kind of one of those. There were a friend of mine said every deal dies 3 times, and that deal died like probably 4. Wow. Where I was like, I just don't, I can't get this to work out. And so it was a portion of the sales price coming down a little bit, us figuring out other routes and avenues, and then kind of rebuilding our business model to let go of production. That was probably the biggest thing that made it possible, because the position it would have put us in, it had been very hard to have the construction lending facility that we would need to continue in production, because that you usually need $20 million of credit just to be able to operate in that space. So Chris and I were looking at it, and I was like, why are we building those houses anyways? It's tough and we don't make a lot of margin, and let's liquidate what we have, turn that to cash, pay those off, move stronger in the build on your land avenue. And we made a goal for that first year in 2019. So we got October 2nd of 2019, said by the end of the year, let's have all the construction lending debt paid off. Let's focus on getting a certain number of units under construction and built on your land. And by, we thought it'd take about 90 days at least. And we got that accomplished by like November
Wow.
And we also had some old invoices that were behind. And so by liquidating everything, we caught up on all of our invoices, got that construction debt. The interest only was like $25,000 per month. So then once we started moving to build on your land, then it really just started to roll really good. And things were feeling really good by January. And then...
So Todd he sounds like, was he basically retiring? He just wanted out.
Yeah, he was retiring.
Yeah. So he was willing to make some big changes to the business to make the deal go through.
Right.
Why didn't he just sell to somebody else, another big construction company that would have just taken over as it was? I mean, it sounds like he worked pretty hard to make this work with you guys.
Yeah, so that's a great question, because the truth is, Chris and I it wasn't the best move for us to buy it. But Chris and I had built this team over the last 10 years. And so it was the people and our culture that we had, that it was, okay, if we don't buy it, it's not going to get a valuation in the market. Todd will, he'll either have to, we couldn't see the path for him to go any other route. That's ultimately what made it easier for us to come to terms with an agreement, because he really didn't have many other options, and we didn't want to let the team that we built up go away. We wanted to keep them moving. So some of it was more of a leap of faith.
Yeah, so the combination of all the elements of the business, it wasn't worth much as it was, is what I'm hearing you say.
Right.
That's man, I've got a friend who's a business broker, and he's told me about stories like that. Somebody goes to retire just like this, and they discover that their business isn't even sellable. So it sounds like it was really serendipitous that he had you guys and you had him, and both sides were willing to work to make a deal happen.
Right. Yeah, it was almost more like a succession plan than it was a buyout.
Yeah. So you buy it. You've got a co-owner at that point. Chris bought it with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You go from not owning a business to now owning a business with a co-owner. What was the transition like?
Well, so the first thing that I thought was, Todd had very high expectations, and my job was to meet those. I thought the initial relief was just going to be for me. I was kind of ran point on things, and I thought, once we buy this, I'll be able to just kind of take a breath and make decisions that I think are the best without having to data analyze, quantify, prove, argue, and all that. But what was amazing in that first month, it was all the staff that was took a big breath. And then I kind of found out that they felt like their job was to try to protect me from Todd.
No way.
And so there was this honeymoon period right there after that, and it ended up being better for everyone. We were able to make some of the adjustments of allowing people to work remotely that I always thought made sense. Let them work remote, and so there are these things that we were doing that actually kind of prepared us for COVID with the remote work. But traditionally, Todd would never have allowed that, and so us getting it in that fall, winter before COVID allowed us to make a few of the changes that ended up being very crucial to being able to continue to operate during COVID.
So what were some of the things that made COVID difficult?
So I was backpacking with one of the senior guys we were up in New Mexico, Sheephead Mountain, and it was in March of 2020. And we had not had a lot of sales in the first part of the year. First part of the year just typically is low in sales. But as we're out, we would go climb a mountain, get out of range, and we'd come back down a mountain, and the restaurants would be only seating every other table. And we'd get calls from our family and toilet paper's out. We'd go up the mountain, we'd come back down, and then they'd be like, schools were closed indefinitely. And I'm like, what do you mean closed indefinitely? And so it was this, we would be in blackout for like 2 days at a time. And each time we came down, the world was progressively different. And
that sounds surreal.
yeah. And, it's like, there's no potatoes. I was like, I've never imagined having a time where it's like, can't get a potato. So it's like, I've been in the business a long time. I've seen a lot of different things. I saw the recession. I saw, just every year there's always some exciting challenge to try to overcome. But the last normal thought I remember having was just sitting and thinking, what does this even mean? Like, I don't even know what this is going to do. And then we sold almost no homes in that first quarter. It was just dead. And then April 16th, we sold 18.
You sold 18?
So 18 within a 45-day period. And at that time, I was like, we're back on track for the year. That gets us right where we need to be. Write them all. That ended up being a very critical, a large mistake. So there's two things that we did that almost killed us. The first was we wrote all 18. All 18 were completely full custom. Cocktail napkin sketch origins is what I call it. When it's like, we're not taking a starting point and modifying it. It is just pie in the sky, just this dream and vision of a client. And it takes a long time to develop that into a set of plans that you can build off of. We could handle 3 to 4 months. So we log jam it with 18. We write them all fixed price contracts in April between April and May of 2020. We log jam so bad, we can't get those first houses of that group started until 2021. So meanwhile, these people are mad.
Yeah. So you're talking, you sold them April, May, and how many do you normally, at that point, would you say was normal for a quarter? Just so we kind of have a
12. Okay, 12 for a quarter. So yeah, 4 months.
So you're kind of catching up is how it felt.
Yeah.
You said you're on track. Okay.
Yeah.
So what was they're all custom. So what was the reason they couldn't get started until 2021?
So it's because we got into this, and I was in a little bit of a different position, as far as we hired an internal plan designer, and our salespeople were working with those, and without me really recognizing what was happening, there was a lot of placating and pacifying in meetings, like, hey, they want to see what's coming up next. Well, we're overloaded with the plan designers, so they get them something. And so we ended up with a bunch of projects just really getting scattered, and not one, then the next and the next. It was like everything was being worked on at one time, instead of saying, let's get our pipeline under control, set expectations, and explain that, like, we understand, we accepted the contract. We thought we'd be in this timeline. We'll give you your money back is what we should offer. Like, this is when you can expect to have your plans done. We would have had more done faster had we done that. Okay. Instead of trying to just run around and touch each one every day a little bit. And so
just so I understand, what was the difference in your role before and after the purchase?
So after the purchase, I was trying to move more into business development or business strategy, and then working on our product, because we didn't own any of our actually planned content. With the purchase of the company, we didn't have that. So I was working towards developing a system and planned product, and that's why we hired a plan designer and then had sales working with them and the clients. So I got out of the space of working directly with the clients, because from 2010 when I joined to 2019, I met with every single client, and we developed their plan together. And so that was
that's what I was curious about right there. So you were the one meeting with clients. You then purchase. You're in a new role. Other folks are meeting with clients now as this crisis essentially unfolds, and that's got to be difficult to navigate. New role plus COVID plus owning the business. That's a lot riding on you.
Right. Yeah. So, and that's why I pulled out a plan design ultimately, and why we hired somebody is to free me up to kind of navigate other issues.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like the business is kind of progressing, and there's a lot of things that were happening at the time that you didn't even know were happening. Did I hear that right?
Right.
So how did you become aware of what was going on here?
So because we didn't have a system, we always drove using the rearview mirror, which works if the road is perfectly straight and nothing changes.
Yeah.
And so we would when we finish a job, we look at how we did margin wise and stuff like that. We did not issue full budgets and tracking it like I was accustomed to. We just never could get that system in place. It was never a priority. And so when we started to have some houses closed that were light on margin, then we made a concerted effort to evaluate everything we had in the pipeline. And that's when we saw we had a group of 12 houses that had already closed the construction loan and were progressing in construction that were going to be a net or a direct loss of about $75,000 per unit.
And was that because of the changing environment and market and lumber and everything, all the costs of building a house are different, or what was the reason for that?
Yeah, so when we wrote them in 2020, they were set at that price. It cost us more time to get them started. And from 2020 to 2021, I mean, there was 10x pricing cost increase on different items. A lumber package for a house would normally cost $30,000 to $40,000, and all of a sudden it was $150,000 for the same house.
Way.
Yeah, so there was just this exponential increase. I remember one of the guys sending me a picture of a piece of 20-foot PVC that's like 4 inches around, so it's not small, but it's laying in a ditch. And he said, "That's $1,500." Whoa! Where it used to be $100 or something like that. So without having our systems in place, then it was like, oh no, what's going on? And we started evaluating these, and then we start recognizing that not only our contract had no provision for this kind of excessive price increase, nothing in it at all.
So did your contract have a force majeure? How do you pronounce it? Force majeure?
Force majeure? No, didn't even have that.
Wow.
Because I'd always wanted to just do business on a handshake.
Yeah.
And so I also wasn't that concerned about it. But then when it happened, then I was like, wish we had a better contract.
Yeah. So what did you do?
So once we realized, how bad that was going to be for us, I started consulting. I joined a peer-to-peer business group and started looking at how do we try and survive this? And it was a deal to where it was like unanimous everywhere I went. They said, just breach the contract. Just tell them if we're going to build it, this is going to be the new price. And one, I was kind of surprised that everyone, it was just like 100%. And, I was sitting there thinking about, well, we bought Dunn Stone because of the reputation that we built over those 10 years. And I decided, let's try this process I'll call collaboration instead of termination. And so I went and evaluated every single job to see how much they were under, or we were, in a deficit to be at least direct cost even. And then I started having conversations with each of the clients. One of the biggest things, we were selling pools at the time, and pools tripled. So there were some when I said, hey, look, we're going to honor the contract price. We're not going to ask for you to give us more money, but I am going to ask, would you be willing to take the pool part out of our contract and then you build the pool later? Let us build you the house. We'll build it at the contract price. That will get us closer to breaking even. Out of those 12, it was amazing. 10 of them, we found ways to work it out, and we still built even a better home they were expecting. We had more manpower on jobs that were moving slower, so
So 10 of the 12 understood, hey, this is a big thing happening in the world, and you're doing the best you can to stay as close to the original contract as possible.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then the other two sounds like, I mean, that's all of us who own businesses and have contracts. This is you're talking about the nightmare that we all hope to never have to live through.
Right.
And you were there living through it. So how did the other two? What happened there?
Those were, and the one thing I was trying to be really cautious of is not to do something better for another client. Of those 10 that were cooperative and worked with us, I kind of felt like it was my duty not to give someone else just because they were being really difficult.
Yeah.
The benefit. And so it was a lot of weighing that and trying to figure out, okay, what's the path forward in avoiding getting everybody tied up in lawsuit. So there was a lot of balancing between that, and because ultimately I think like there was one where we had not started the house yet. They didn't close on the construction loan. So on that one, that was one I felt was fair game to say, look, we can't build it. We wrote the contract in good faith, thinking that we could afford to build it. If we start this house knowing that we can't and may not be able to afford it, then we would be doing a disservice to them. If any of those clients, if we imploded and any of those clients had a house half built in the middle of that, I mean, that would have been terrible for all those families. I mean, what do you do? No builder's going to want to come in and finish it. And if they do, they're going to do it at the prices that they need to do it.
Right.
And
then
so
the
for us,
family's already locked into a contract, so they've got all that money,
right?
Or construction loans. They've got all that money that they're committed
Yeah.
to.
And once you have a construction loan on a property, you can't increase that.
Really? The construction loan doesn't even let you adjust for changing lumber costs?
Right. So then it began during COVID where the lenders were requiring a $20,000 allowance or buffer in there. But prior to COVID, it'd be contract price. We were a fixed contract builder, and so there was no fluff in their numbers.
Yeah, really no precedent for that. So
yeah,
so the loans hadn't even had a backup plan prior to COVID.
Right.
Sounds like.
Right.
Jeez.
Yeah. So I told everyone that we are going to honor the contract to where we are capable.
Mm-hmm.
Like it may come out of our hands to where we're just no longer capable to honor the contract, and
right.
Then what do we do? And so that's where the collaborative process and some of them it was, hey, look, we hear the lumber market, we're seeing it, lumber market's dropping. We poured your slab. Can we wait 3 weeks and then drop the frame pack once the price comes down? And, I'll pay for your extra storage and rental if we, push the schedule longer. And everyone, out of those 10, they're like, yeah, that's fine. You're still going to give us the house. And I was like, my job is to make sure that we're here. That was my ultimate goal was we need to be here for these clients.
Right.
And get them to a finished house, because it would be economically devastating for each one of them if, the house prices were for the same house going to be $220,000 more.
Mm-hmm.
And that's $220,000 more just building start to finish with one builder. No builder wants to walk into a house that's partially done and then be on the hook for warranting and making sure everything that the other builder before did was right. So they're going to add another 30% for risk.
Yep.
So
I mean, we're talking, you buy a company and then you're baptized by fire here. So how did this stuff impact your mindset as a business owner?
I can tell you in 5 years, I think.
Okay.
It was one of those things. It's been like I said, it's been white knuckle for 5 years. And just the belief that man, we've got really good people, really good reputation. Our clients are our future, and all we have to do is make it to the other side. But like the personal stress and wear and tear was, I didn't even understand it until we got kind of to the other side. Because when you're in survival mode, you can put a lot of things aside. But then once you start coming out of it, then you're like, oh man, I've got, I was like bald spot on the back of my head, like, how's that happen? Then just lose hair and have the new weird rash. And, like it had this physiological impact that was tough. And then trying to recover and come out of it, it wasn't until I got hold of a book by Dan Martell. It's the first business book that ever talked about ownership care. Like it's how to build a company that you don't grow to hate. It's the first book that really, and I just got it and I was like, all right, that's what I needed. And the main mindset shift of this book is don't hire to fill a position, hire to buy back some of your time.
Okay.
Because, when I was thinking about, all right, now we're going back into growth mode. We're going to have to hire, we're going to have to start hiring people. I don't have time right now that I need to get everything I've got done. I've slid into the salesperson's role for the time being. And just the idea of having to build back up staff was really overwhelming. And just that one mindset shift of saying, okay, look at hiring people that will buy you time. So here are the first 3 hires to make to free up you to go do other stuff. And now I think as a business owner, we all carry the responsibility of every family that works for us. And we want to be pushing hard. We don't want them to look up and say, man, that guy's just laying around. Why would I, he's going to tell me to work harder and he doesn't. And so you just work harder and harder, trying to move this ball forward. And before you know it, you're like 70 hours a week, 100 hours a week at work. And, my family, miss me because it's just, you're just working to try and dig out because you really have no other choice. If you're an employee somewhere, you're like, well, this isn't working out. I'm going to go do something else. Boom. But once it's all on you, it's on you. Like I told people that I was looking forward to owning the company because I didn't have to answer to the founder. The minute that I did, now I have to answer to 15 families.
Right. Yeah, I think
just the opposite.
I think I talk to a lot of business owners in my role, and because that's who our clients are. They own businesses, and I've probably done I've never counted, but thousands of sales calls over the years, and a good portion are with folks who they think they have a business, but they don't quite have one yet. They're more of a freelancer, and there's a lot of romanticizing of what the business owner role is. And I can get into a sales call and at this point almost predict how successful the person in the company is based on basically their affect. What is that kind of energy that they bring into the call? And a part of what correlates with less success, in my experience, is it almost comes off as too much optimism. I think that to own a business, to be an entrepreneur, you have to have a certain amount of what I call delusional optimism. You have to be just a little bit delusional. You have to believe that things will be better. Otherwise, you wouldn't be there. You wouldn't have started the business. You wouldn't have bought it. You wouldn't own it. But there's this kind of romanticization that happens where they're almost, in this call, they're almost too happy, it seems, which isn't quite exactly what it is. And there's a happiness that the successful folks bring too, but there's this difference where when I'm in a call with somebody who has been through the ringer and they have achieved success or maintained success, there's that weight that you're talking about. and it's palpable, even in a video call. And there isn't this, oh, I started a business for freedom. Well, okay. What you're talking about is actually the truth. It's not that you can work as little as you want once you own the business. If you get lucky and you start, one of Tim Ferriss's, 4-hour work week businesses, or maybe an online course or something, and you get lucky and it actually works, sure. There's a guy named Justin Welsh who's pretty popular, very talented teacher, and he's got a business that's over $1 million, and it's mostly just him. But I think he's the exception. The rule is what you're talking about here, where you actually you take on that responsibility to care for the folks who are working for you, and to care more than they do about the company and the customers. And there's that weight. It's not freedom in the way that a lot of folks initially go in thinking it's going to be. It's a different kind of freedom that comes with a whole lot of responsibility, is what I found.
Yeah.
And
like when you're a kid, you look forward to being an adult because you can stay up late or do what you want.
That's more. Great. Yes, that's perfect.
Yeah, I think I enjoyed that. I can say I do enjoy being an adult more, like that one in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Has come through, but I got bills and some responsibilities. But and I thought I would experience kind of the same thing with business ownership, but then I got there and I was like, now I don't have one person telling me what to do. I have thousands.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Now it's the clients, the employees. But I think what you're talking about is the perfect picture there. The kids imagine what it's going to be like being an adult, and they don't think about the weight of a mortgage and putting food on the table. That's all taken care of for them.
Yeah.
But that's the truth. I'm impressed by this. So what do you think this did to this sense of kind of business survival for you? Did that shift during that period of time as well?
That's a good question. One of the things when we bought it, we knew it was a tough deal without COVID. This was not like a big cash balance, huge, it was, let's figure out how to make this work. So it was tight. And Chris and I had said, we got to burn our boats at the beach,
And this is before COVID. You guys were talking about that.
This is before COVID.
Wow.
And I said, look, if we're going to make this work, we have to persevere and just push forward no matter what. We will no longer be employees. And so burn the boats so that you have no way home. That's the only way that, where it's like, we're going to die here or we're going to make it through. And so then during COVID, that was kind of the it's like, well, what else am I going to do? I can't, I'm not going to fold. I'm not going to, well, let's just work with everyone, do the best that we can, let them know the truth at each stage, and be transparent and hold, and that's where we did make a little transition later, because I was like, I feel like I got to take the risk. I would rather go chapter 7, doing everything possible to honor our contract than to not honor the contract and survive easily or whatever. I was like, that's got to be in the character of this business, of people trusting us enough to say, I've got $200,000 piece of property. I'm going to take out a loan and I'm going to trust you to deliver me a home. And I don't know how you can do that and grow that business without people having confidence that even if things get tough, they're going to push through.
Yeah, I think most businesses that I've come across have a point of no return, basically. That, well, what else are we going to do? Moment. Can't get out. Yeah, the only way out is through. Wow. So what I know that you ended up buying out Chris. So tell me about what led to that decision, and What's the difference between owning a business on your own and with a co-owner?
Yeah. So what was interesting was it kind of came to a point to where I had been running things, and then I would report to Todd, and I would make a lot of decisions, and I always called it the Fred Loucks guarantee. I'm going to make decisions. If you don't like it, I'm going to pay for it. I'll pay for it out of my pocket, or something like that.
And this is back when Todd still owned it?
When Todd still owned it.
Okay.
And so Todd was less and less involved in daily operations and daily decisions. Then once Chris was on the hook with me, then we had to discuss and consider each move, because he's on the hook just like I am, and I couldn't live with myself if I had pushed to do the gamble of some of the decisions and then it cost him and his family. And so it became easier for me to say, all right, I'll wear it all. And so that at least takes it makes it easier to make decisions and take risks, because I wouldn't devastate another family's legacy. So it was kind of a deal of, all right, if one family's going to get burnt, let's, I was the adventurer, in between the two of us. I was like, no sense in two people going down, two families, being financially ruined. And then also me having the freedom to take the risk, I've been exposed to a lot of situations, none of them quite like that, but it kind of equipped me to make some decisions where Chris hadn't been quite as exposed to it, just through his career. My career just had put me in boardrooms, banks, financials, more legal stuff. And so I just found that I was more comfortable just knowing it's only me that I can really bring.
Wow. That's not where I expected you to go. The decision side of things is what I had thought, but what an honorable way to approach the decision.
And Chris was very honorable in it too, with working with me on how we could do that. And because also it was to also free up shares. So if I needed to get, I would have some shares or membership interest to sell if I needed to survive. So that was the other, like Chris, it was a real honorable thing in the way that we did it, and he still works here today.
That's impressive. He was able to give that up. So did he not? There's some folks I've come across who they think they want to own a business, but they actually don't. Was that more him, or was he just doing it, making the sacrifice for the good of the company?
You'd probably have to ask him to know for sure.
Yeah.
Because it's really, we had two very different styles. And so I don't know for sure if his approach, we had different styles. So I told him, let's say you and I bought a 18-wheeler for $300,000. We blow the engine in it on our first 1,000 miles. Chris would feel most comfortable saying, let's sell the 18-wheeler, less the motor. Let's sell it for $250,000. I'm going to get a stable job that I can count on and pay that $50,000 off. So there's no dishonor in that approach.
Right.
I would borrow more, and then I would change. Like if we were short hauling that didn't make money, I was like, I'm going to take out a bigger loan, and then we're going to buy a second truck. Put an engine in the one, get a second truck, and then we're going to start going East Coast to West Coast, longer routes. So just two different styles of not aptitudes or appetites for risk.
Oh, totally. And I mean, that's just to even know that about yourselves and about each other is a game changer for working together or making the decision for one of you to step down. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and it's just like still to this day. I mean, Chris has a heart of gold, just dripping with diamonds. And I think both of us know we've never been trying to take from the other to improve ourselves.
So what's next? So you've survived COVID. Here we are in 2024. You made it through. I'm sure that your contracts have changed a bit since 2020.
Yeah, you can
But what
measure
else?
the inches.
What do things look like having gone through that?
So, so we tried to stay in survival mode for a long time, and then it was about I don't know how long you and I have been doing the flywheel campaign.
Yeah, I
Three,
think that we worked together initially, uh, early quarter one or two of 2023, if I remember right.
yeah, and then in the first part of 2024, yeah, I was like, this survival mode operating platform is not going to get us anywhere.
Hmm.
It's time to stop trying to shelter in place and just made a conscious decision that we're going to go into growth mode.
All right.
So, what are the things to do to improve and grow? And it's, evaluate and make very, very difficult decisions. Decisions I'd never signed up to make, but looking at reallocating where we had, what resources do we have? It's not what don't we have, what do we have to work with? Okay, can we shift this over and start gaining some traction? And I was telling you about the story of Blue 42. Like, we were this great Blue 42, the story of a whale that communicates at this different hertz level, and none of the other whales know he's around.
Mm.
And we were kind of in that space. Like, we were this great organization that did all these great things, but we couldn't get our message out very well. That wasn't what we were good on. We relied 100% on referral business, which is great. But our clients aren't going to talk to 1,000 people. And I also have a strong policy of do not ask a client for a review. That's not their job. Our job is just to make them so happy that they would want to write a review.
Okay.
I want them to want to write a review. I'm not going to ask them to. So that doesn't generate a lot of reviews.
Right.
Yeah. You still get the ones where you couldn't make them as happy as you wanted to. But
Yeah.
and so it was this, okay, let's always proceed with honor and try not to put clients in a bad spot or make them do our work. But then how do we get the message out? And that's when I was listening to a podcast by Devin Tilley. It's called The Art of Construction. And then they started talking about, that was the first time I'd ever heard about story brand. About like just really thinking about what's the story, what is it that you're trying to help your client do? And I'm listening to this and I'm like, that's what I've been trying to do. But I was still Blue 42. Yeah. I still couldn't get the message out. So it's like, hey, this fits our DNA. Like, we love just, like, my favorite thing to do in this whole organization is to sit down and listen to someone's story about like, each conversation is so very different because it's based on their history. And, so like sometimes it's like, what's the best memory you had in a home and why?
Yeah.
Like, you're wanting to build a new one. Why? What is it that you think that can get you or improve? So we kind of defined our purpose as our only purpose is to build environments that enrich lives. So how do you actually do that?
Right.
And so the story methodology really helps us do that. And we've recently gotten a review where it's it's almost like they wrote everything we've been trying to do,
No way.
And that that we just listened to them, and then we were able to develop a house with less square footage at a better price, putting features where they wanted it to, and really considering their lives in it. And so it not only reinforced kind of what we were already doing, but Story Brand kind of gave us the tools to like, okay, we know this is a real thing now. Like, how do you come alongside clients and build them a better custom home? And
wow.
Story Brand just gave us a clear framework that it wasn't just made up. kind of,
Yeah. It's validating. You're like,
Yeah.
that sense of I discovered something that aligns with these things I've already been wanting to do, and it clarifies it even further. And that's
Right.
what it originally brought us together, was the website, doing a
Mm-hmm.
story brand website, which I probably need to say that I'm no longer a story brand certified guide just for legal reasons here,
Okay.
um, but I was back then, and we started off with the StoryBrand website and getting that messaging clear,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's a great framework to use in communicating. I think that a lot of folks feel the way that you do, where they, especially with how much Don references movies, they say, "Wow, this kind of resonated,"
Mm-hmm.
with the way that I've
Yeah.
been kind of thinking, and I just hadn't had words for it yet.
Right. And just when you hear story methodology isn't exclusive to story brand.
Right.
Uh, there's one of the podcasts with Devin Tilley was a guy, and he was called Lego Serious Play,
Okay.
and so this one guy, he's the chief storyteller. Like that's a position in his company, chief
Wow.
storyteller. And he used to be a data analyst, and he was like, no, we need to communicate through stories, because
Yeah.
that's what we understand. And so like the better the story, and the more I really understand the character that we're
Mm-hmm.
building a house for, like we can really deliver what they don't even know how to ask for.
Right. Yeah, because it goes beyond your marketing. I started the first place that I used the StoryBrand framework was at a bar that I had helped open, and basically just taught all the staff, hey, every person who comes in here is living their own story. They're the hero in their story, and this is not about how cool you are.
Mm-hmm.
This is about them, bringing a friend in or bringing somebody in on a date, and how do we make that person the hero for the moment that they're here. And this bar got started and it just basically exploded immediately. It was just people talking about it, bringing their friends in, and the owners were incredible as well. You actually remind me of one of the owners. Yeah. And so there's a lot that went into that, but it goes well beyond just the words that we're using into the experience that we're creating for
Mm-hmm.
our customers and even employees as well.
Right. Yeah, because it's everyone's story. Like we get to impact so many lives with our business model.
Mm-hmm.
Like one person said, leverage the utility impact of your business to like make the world a little bit better. So
Yeah.
we have trade partners. We have 75 different trades that it takes to build a house. So we get to nurture and foster improvement with them. We have our
Right.
internal staff, and so like when we're building environments, it's not just a house. It's what's our office environment? Is this something
Mm-hmm.
that we look forward to come to work? And I'd put out a questionnaire of like, what's the most important thing for you coming to work? And I kind of put together a list of what I thought would be, like growth, opportunities, and that kind of stuff. And at the bottom, I threw in, look forward to going to work. We sat down, and that ended up being the top. So I was like, I'm glad we had this conversation.
Just look forward to it. What did you hear? That's great. What's the feedback you heard on what does it take for somebody to look forward to going to work?
Yeah, so that's something that we've been kind of developing over the years, is because it's not only something good for you, it's also a responsibility. You're a part of someone else's day. Well, you're a part of someone else's day.
Right.
You're a part of them looking forward to come to work. So the way that you engage in work, there's some duty. You're duty bound to help someone else. Like,
yeah,
everyone's had that situation where they don't want to go to work, and it's usually because of a particular relationship or something like that, or a situation.
Yep.
And so it kind of, we could take everything else and throw it away and just say that is the only priority we have. Look forward to coming to work, because that means the right thing for each person. Yep. Like one person may want to have excessive career growth and or they may want to grow in their leadership skills and move up the ladder. And that's what makes them look forward to coming to work. Some person might be like really content with, hey, I like this job. It's a good organization, and I'm sitting on cruise and I'm going to add value to the team doing these things. They appreciate me for it, and it helps them do their climb.
Yeah.
And so really that's the only thing we have to do is everyone here, we want them to look forward to coming to work. And so
yeah.
it's
And
very
it's
flexible.
not just about that. I love that second group that you just shared, because they're the backbone of every organization. And I think that they're often, overlooked, because I think it's Apple that they've separated out the categories of their employees into superstars and rock stars or something like that. And one of the categories is the ones that want to climb the ladder, and the other ones are the ones that just want to show up and do their job. And that's fine. We all need those folks. And it's great to acknowledge that that's a good part of a company.
And the other is, I think everyone thinks that the only way to grow in a career is by managing more people.
Yeah.
Instead of just becoming a more precise expert in your craft.
Yeah.
And so that's where we kind of say there's going to be two ladders. Like if you want to become the best designer, you're working alone most of the time, but you're developing like the next awesome solution for one of our clients. Like you should be able to climb and get compensated just as the one that goes from management, and because half the time that's not really the right fit for the person anyways.
Right. Yeah. Management's its own set of skills that's absolutely separate from the skills that it requires to do the job. And I think that a lot of folks, there's these myths out there, the myth of entrepreneurship, the myth, we already talked about that with this romanticization, but there's also that myth of climbing the ladder. And if folks believe that that's the only next step, then they'll take on this role that they really shouldn't. They're not good at. Not everybody should be managing people. So there's a lot that should just be doing the job. And then it turns out poorly because they don't have the management skills, even though they have the job skills.
Right. Yeah, like right people on the bus, right seats.
Exactly. I love Jim Collins. Any reference to Jim Collins. What was the name of that book? I meant to ask you earlier, the book that you'd mentioned that you had read right after all of this COVID stuff.
It's called Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. Yep. Dan
Martell. Okay.
Uh-huh.
That's a good one. So people loving coming to work. What a great goal. And anything else? I mean, I feel like we've kind of hit so many topics here. Anything else in terms of what you're thinking about now and where you're going next?
Yeah, so as far as where we're going now is we're really kind of refining who we are and how we're going to accomplish it, and becoming much more, it had always been that a builder waits for a client, you buy land and the client comes to you and then you start helping them with the house and on.
Okay.
We're working on trying to figure out what are all the hurdles that they have personally to get to talk to us.
Right.
Building a house on your own land is a sophisticated process. 10 years ago, if I were to try to do it myself, it would be daunting. Okay, I'm going to go buy land, and then I'm going to go do this, and what are all the fees, and what's that going to be? So everybody's learning as they approach us.
Yeah.
And it used to be, if they came to us and they didn't have land, it would become a lower quality prospect.
Right.
And now that I've gotten to slide into the sales role, I realize it's actually better if they don't have land. We're not constricted to the lot that they have, because sometimes they come to us with a piece of land. I hear their story and we start to design this house and it's not going to fit right.
Yeah.
And so if we can start to reach more people and say, let us come alongside you on purchasing the land, not only with the purchase of it, but be able to finance it all together, us guide you, and let you know up front, what's this total house going to cost? In our arena, there's not that solution. You can go to a model home in a community and that solution's there. I want to buy this house.
I mean, and this makes so much sense because the lack of understanding of it doesn't have to be as complicated as folks think it does.
Right.
And so that, because they think it's complicated, there's a lot of folks who probably could buy a home with your help. They exit that journey before they even start because they don't think it's possible. Right. So, you've got this is going to be a big thing for the whole industry, potentially, as you educate folks and expand the market. It also makes it better for you if the communication and the teaching works. You can get into the worlds and the lives of these folks who thought that they couldn't buy a home, and you show them that they can. You've also just expanded your potential market, which is part of our, the three main parts of marketing. One of them is reach the market. You want to reach all potential users. Well, the problem is eventually you're going to run out if you continue to grow, right? Apple, Facebook, they're to the point that Facebook is now giving internet to people for free in countries that don't have internet so that they can use Facebook, so that Facebook can make more money off of them, right? You have to, once you've run out of people in your target market, if you want to keep growing, you have to expand your target market. So this is a fantastic way to do that. You're now taking a very small percentage of the population who are able to buy land and then build a house. That takes a certain amount of wealth in order to do that. Mm-hmm. And you're showing these folks who can't do that, well, you actually can still buy a house. You're increasing the market significantly. This is a perfect next step in terms of how marketing and sales and growth work. So you've got a big journey in front of you in that, and I know that you've also been doing a lot of systematizing to build houses better, and I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
So by having the opportunity to talk to people from, like I was saying, 2010 to 2019, I was the person that got to sit down and find out what floor plan do you want, what elevation, what's your style, what are the needs, how old are the kids, because they're all about to move out, let's consider that. Or if they're infants and toddlers, like this, the shape of a room changes based on your family size. But then what I found was essentially people usually fell in love with a kitchen and a primary bathroom, like their master bath and a kitchen. I love this kitchen, I love this bathroom, but that house is too small or too big, doesn't have the rooms. And so what we're systematizing is we've been internally calling it prime design. Okay. Kind of the idea of, what is it? Red, yellow, blue. You can make any color. Yeah. So we have a kitchen and the layout that we've really proven and tested. Like, okay, all right, this is the one. If you're a baker, this is the kitchen for you. You're gonna. This is a high performing kitchen for a baker. This is a high performing kitchen for someone that does pasta and that kind of stuff all the time. So we kind of, it gives us a chance to really improve the performance of those different rooms. And then we put those onto a family room. And then around that, we can start putting other proven pieces around it. So it's like completely, it takes a long time to get a room to be the most efficient it can possibly be. And if you draw one for the first time and put a window on it, and when they move in, they realize there's no wall to put a bed on. Right. There's simple things like that get overlooked by starting from scratch each time. So our system is really, we're going to start selling rooms, pick out the best rooms, and then let's figure out where they go. And then, like, I'll tell people, go on Houzz or Pinterest and just look at front houses and like exterior elevations. Mm-hmm. Just look at those until you feel your heart skip. If you're, like we're tingling, like your hair stands up on the back of your neck. Yeah. And that's the one. And let's see how we can arrange the rooms and get the right offsets to execute that look.
Okay.
So
I mean, this is a different. I think a lot of folks we build websites, and so we kind of see some similar things where people are coming in and the sky's the limit is what they feel. Awesome. It's very exciting. But your company has built what, hundreds, thousands of homes.
we're about 900.
Okay, so 900 homes, but this person, it's their first one they built, or maybe their second. And so there's mistakes, and that's, mistakes are made often because of that lack of experience. So you're there, rather than just saying, hey, we'll build whatever you want, knowing that down the road now they're going to hate that kitchen because they thought it was a cool idea until they're trying to function in it. So you've got these rooms that you're like, these work and we can combine them. That's the type of builder that I personally would want to work with, because I would go into the project knowing I don't want to make the mistakes. I want to work with somebody who already made them so that I don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that early on there's homes that the company built that you guys were able to learn from. One of the things that you've told me before also is just in the sizing of the rooms and saving some money by sizing the rooms based on the size of the lengths
Material.
of wood that you can buy.
Yeah. So we measure dumpster pulls, or I do.
Okay.
Like how much construction debris do we generate? And
so you measure this on every project? Is that what you're saying?
So I'll look at it, and I haven't had the time to really set up the metric in the report I want, but but I'll go do it as an exercise, and I'll look and see, because there's an invoice each time the dumpster gets filled up and we have to haul it off and get empty.
Okay.
It comes back, and so
that's easily trackable. That makes sense.
Yeah. And, I mean, we're talking about, is it 7 or is it 2?
Right.
So it's not a complicated number. And so every time that dumpster gets pulled, that means there's extra effort to either cut this material to a different size. There's more waste in the landfill, and we're just not being good stewards of the resources we have. Like there's a lot of things you can do to make a house more green, but dumpster pulls is probably the top of the list for me, just as far as the amount of waste. Because so in trying to make it better for everybody. So the framer, if he has to cut every single ceiling joist, if a room is 12'1", we have to buy 14-foot material, and then he has to cut each one. We make the room 11'5". He takes 12-foot material and he puts it up, and there's no cuts. It's easier for him. It's the same quality of house.
Right.
We can return that and provide more competitive pricing that's better for everyone around.
This is one of my favorite things that I've heard about your company, and we, as you mentioned, we've worked together in the past. We're working together now, but this is one of my favorite things because I'm such a systems nerd and I'm such an efficiency nerd. I'm like, man, that makes so much sense, because somebody doesn't care when they're in the room. They don't care if it's 12'1" or 11'5".
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to know. You don't know what the size is when you're not walking around your house with a measuring tape unless you're doing something. It's invisible essentially, but this approach of it cuts down on the labor, cuts down on the waste. Just amazing. So how much, just out of curiosity, how much time does that save? If you do that to every room, how much time does that save in building a house? And waste too.
Yeah. So the biggest gains are usually waste. In time, because it still takes a framer, they might get it done a few days earlier.
Okay. So it's not massive time, but it could be significant for waste.
Right. The biggest, the secondary of the savings of time is if you have a proven room and you have proven components, everyone's going to show up and their stuff goes to the right spot.
Mm-hmm.
That's difficult to measure, because when we're doing a full custom, it's the first time we drew the house, we'll throw in $10,000 to overcome the problems, because we're prototyping. A prototype is going to have, oh, didn't realize this until we built it, that you can't open this door without hitting the toilet, or, whatever it is. It's some kind of problem. So then we'll spend time and money to move it. Like we had one where the client was being shown exterior dimensions of a family room. They ordered furniture for the house. They did a pocket sliding door on the back of the family room that's 2 feet thick. It required 2 feet of wall. Okay. Their family room was in effect 2 feet narrower than what they thought by looking at a construction set of plans.
Wow.
They're just about to take delivery, and they said we ordered all this custom furniture, and we marked it out on the floor, and it's not going to fit.
No way.
And so they had a realtor, and they said, "Oh, you can move that wall." And some of the guys in construction were like, "This house is finished."
Yeah.
And I said, "We can. Let's move it." So we moved that wall. We took the stud, the structural wall that was on the exterior, and we moved the interior one past it. And it took some engineering and thought, and it cost us $5,000.
Right.
But we got them back their 2 feet that they thought, and it didn't matter. We need to be the experts. Right. It didn't matter that it said it on the plan. Mm-hmm. If I'm walking around, it needs to be that. So as we make our audience-based plans, we make sure that our dimensions are to the inside. We put furniture with its dimensions in it to try and avoid misunderstandings and the things that you find out at the very end. So that one, by perfecting rooms and getting better and better at those, the time savings difficult to measure, but probably enormous.
No, absolutely. And even just the frustration there, the communication can be so much better because you've built that type of room before.
Yeah.
And so the mistakes that they're going to avoid, even if they haven't made those mistakes yet and they don't know.
Right.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, this has been great, Fred. I appreciate your perspective on all of this. What a journey. And for the folks listening who aren't in construction, I think that this is still something that anybody can make their systems more efficient. And everybody is going to have to go through a survival scenario in their business at some point and reach that moment of, well, what else am I going to do?
Right.
So I appreciate you for just being so transparent in this conversation about some of the difficulties that you've been through, because we're all, if we haven't gone through them yet, we're going to.
Mm-hmm.
And that piece of honor, I think, is just amazing as well. From that blend, it's actually in our values at ClearBrand, we have two conflicting values, and they conflict on purpose. And one of them is, we just changed the name of it. It's an iron will to win, is what we call it. So this is from Jim Collins, and
great by choice.
Great by choice. Yeah. Good to great. I'm such a big Jim Collins fan. So one of our values is an iron will to win, and that's what you were going through during this COVID thing. We have to stay in business. We have to be able to continue to serve folks, serve our team. That's one of my major motivations for owning a company, is to provide a place that people want to go to work. I don't think people should have to suffer every day. That was the old way of finding a career, and you're just going to trudge through it until you retire. And I want people to be able to enjoy that time before they retire. So that's a huge motivating factor for me. And in order to do that, we have to stay in business. And so we have to be able to serve our clients. And so that's where an iron will to win comes from. And then the conflicting value that we have is nonstop integrity. So an iron will to win might encourage a person at some point to do something to stay in business that wouldn't be a decision of integrity, and the way that you described your approach to the problems of COVID, I think, is a blend of these. Just such a good example of, we have to stay in business, but we want to do it in a way that we can feel proud of later. And I just think that's amazing. Yeah. So I appreciate you sharing your journey here. So for a person who might be in your target market, how would they be able to find you, work with you? If most of our listeners are business owners, but hey, let's say that somebody's in Texas and they're like, great, I want a custom house that's built by people who actually know how to build these rooms that make sense. How do they find you?
Yep. So our website, dunnstonebuilders.com, is a good place.
Okay.
Reach out to us either through that or it has our phone number on it. We love it when people just call. We don't have AI to answer. We
real humans.
Real
That's
humans.
nice.
And I hope that's the way it'll always be. And yeah.
Okay. And what's the areas that you serve?
So right now we serve in the area of in the northwest area of Houston up to Huntsville and as far west as Bryan College Station.
Okay. So if you're in that area, Texas, DunnStoneBuilders.com. Well, I appreciate your time today, Fred, and I look forward to having you on again at some point.
All right. Thanks, Alexander. Have a good day.
Okay, you too. Thanks for listening to the Clear Brand Marketing Podcast. If you need help with your website or marketing, go to clearbrand.com. You can schedule a free strategy call with one of our consultants or take advantage of our free resources to help you write, design, or implement a better website and marketing.